This is the heart of the Teutoburg Wald, a relaxing and peaceful forest near Hanover in northern Germany. I'm Matthew Settle. In 9 AD, this place was anything but peaceful. It was a battleground where 18,000 Roman soldiers, led by their commander Varus, were ambushed by thousands of German tribesmen, led by the former Roman soldier Arminius. For 3 days, Varus would try to fight his way out of a death trap.
Now, with new video game technology, you are about to see this great battle as never before.
The vast numbers of soldiers, the troop formations, how they fought, and how the battle was won. Get the view the generals wish they had. Now, on decisive battles.
In 9 AD, Rome was a confident imperial power, and it had reason to be. The Emperor Augustus had ruled for 36 years. During this time, he had reformed the army, brought the legions under his sole control, and expanded the borders of the empire. The Romans had never had it so good.
This is a sense of power unlimited and Rome's right to rule. So there's tremendous confidence. The gods are on Rome's side.
Augustus was the great-nephew of Julius Caesar. He believed that he was descended from the god Apollo and had a month of the year, August, named after him.
But if he was a god, he was certainly in disguise. He was short, he walked with a limp, and at the age of 72, he could only see out of one eye. But with that one eye, he had a great vision for his empire.
He had expanded Rome's boundaries to guard against external attack. He was particularly proud of how the tribes who lived out on the frontier had been colonized and adopted Roman practices. This even seemed to be working well in one of the wildest parts of the empire, Germania, modern-day Germany. New towns were being built. Mainz, Cologne, and Bonn were all Roman garrison towns. They were all west of the River Rhine. East of the River Rhine was a different story. The land between the Rhine and the Elbe had always been dangerous territory. The young Roman commander Drusus had fought against the German tribes there 20 years earlier and had pushed east as far as the Elbe before he fell off his horse and died at the age of 29. But by the time of his death, he had managed to pacify the region. The time had now come to Romanize these tribal lands.
In 7 AD, Augustus Caesar appointed Quintilius Varus as governor of Germania. His job was to set up administrative systems in the Rhineland and turn it into a proper Roman province. Varus had an eventful family history. Both his father and his grandfather had committed suicide after political failure. But Varus had no intention of continuing his family tradition.
Varus was brought in from the east. He had been a governor of Syria. It was said by one of the ancient sources that Varus was a crook. Varus, when he went to Syria, was poor and Syria was rich. And when he left, Varus was rich and Syria was poor.
But Varus was an administrator, not a battlefield commander.
He thought that the German people had advanced so far along the process of provincialization that they were eager to learn how to work with Roman law and Roman principles of government.
After arriving in Germania, he tried to set up a taxation system in the tribal areas and established good relations with the local leaders. The most prominent of these was Arminius. His lands lay midway between the Rhine and the Elbe. Arminius already seemed Roman in all but name. He was around 25 years old and had spent his adult life in the Roman army. He had served as an officer in the auxiliaries. Auxiliary soldiers were recruited from the provinces and frontier regions. They served in units of 500 men and were commanded by their own local leaders. Their job was to back up the legions. Arminius was a very able commander. He learned Latin and was made a Roman citizen as a reward for his success on the battlefield.
To Varus, the Romanized tribesman, was an example of what could be achieved in the region. The two became firm friends and ate in the officers' mess.
Arminius is a man with a foot in both camps. Figures such as Arminius, who can both relate to the local native population and the Roman authorities, are crucial to the whole project of the Roman Empire.
But behind the smiles, the reality was completely different. Most of the tribes feared that Varus would force them to pay heavy taxes to Rome, instead of the goodwill gifts or tribute they normally sent to the emperor.
It looks as though, from Varus right up to the imperial throne, there was an expectation that Germany was now ready to be made into an ordinary province. They were ready to pay their taxes like everybody else. And they miscalculated.
And the tribal leaders feared that if their lands became part of a Roman province, they would lose all their power and influence.
Political independence, which had existed as a client state, was begone forever. And that was a hard pill to swallow for the leaders unless they had some really clear guarantees that they were going to be employed in this new provincial regime.
Arminius knew they were right. During his years in the army, he had seen the iron grip of Roman government. Varus would have to be stopped.
He was the leader of the resistance movement, and he certainly knew enough about Roman society, and especially the Roman army, to really know what he was resisting.
He was around Varus's camp, and when others told Varus not to trust him, not to believe him, that he might be a traitor, Varus said, "He's my friend." And he believed it.
He's overconfident, essentially. He doesn't really recognize the scale of the threat he's got against him, and he chooses to trust the wrong people with feet in both camps.
In September 9 AD, word arrived of a tribal uprising several days' march away. Varus immediately